So yeah, this is it's pre-recorded, so I'll edit out all the ums and ahs. So we'll just go. I think I'll give you the prep sheet, and we will. That's just a guide. You know,
Yeah.
go off.
I skim the prep sheet a little bit. I generally like to not prepare too much because then my answers feel a little bit scripted. So I generally don't questions beforehand.
Sure.
Do you mind if I have coffee in the shop or?
Not at all.
Cool.
So yeah, we'll just dive into it. So welcome to the Prosperous Musician. I am here with today's guest. It's Caleb Shreve. How are you?
I'm doing very well. How are you doing?
I'm great. Thanks for joining me. So tell me all about your product. You have an invention. You have a new system that can help songwriters, and I'm very curious about this. I've found out a little bit about, done a little bit of research on it, but I'd love to know more about it and how it came about.
Yes, we have a company called Killphonic Rights. We do worldwide collection for independent artists, for some labels and other businesses. Basically, it's administration of royalties. We started because in the United States, there was actually never a society to collect mechanical royalties. And I don't know how much people have followed what's going on in the States or what went on in the States, but in 2018, we realized that there was a huge amount of money from Spotify and Apple and the other DSPs that hadn't been paid for mechanical royalties. So they started something, we had something called the Music Modernization Act, and in that, they started something called the MLC, which was basically our first mechanical licensing company. It actually stands for Mechanical Licensing Collective, but yeah, it was the first organization. We had to pay out that, like, there's roughly $400 million of unpaid royalties. When this all started, though, when they had an open selection for who could be the MLC, I had noticed that a bunch of major publishers were trying to vie for the position of the board for the MLC. And that didn't sit well with me because all of the money that was unpaid was to independent writers. And there was a small provision in the Music Modernization Act that said that if they could not find the writers within the first year that this money was owed to, they could keep it for themselves, or they could distribute it by market share, which meant that the majors were going to get the bulk of the money. So obviously that seemed like a huge conflict of interest. I started to reach out to some other independent publishers and stuff, and I joined up with Jeff Price, who started TuneCore, and a couple of independent publishers, and made a competing group to become the MLC. Fast forward, we campaigned and came down to the two of us. Both groups went to Washington, D.C., and it was up to the head of copyrights, the register of copyrights, to make the decision. She ultimately decided in favor of the majors, and then subsequently left the Copyright Board to become the lead counsel for the Motion Picture Association, which is made up of Universal Pictures, Warner Pictures, and Sony Pictures, which happen to be the same companies that major labels are as well. So that was this, like, blatant American corruption that happens all the time here. Jeff called me after that and was like, why don't you start, a company anyway that can hold the MLC to the fire, maybe compete a little bit with them on some of their collections. So that's where we started with Killphonic Rights, and we originally were just trying to start with mechanical royalties, but quickly learned that they're very integrated with performance royalties, and we became a full publishing administrator and created an online portal for independent artists to come and claim their royalties.
Great. Let me just move this out of the way.
Yeah, sorry, the answer was a bit long, but
no, okay. It's fine. So you, so what's your background then? How come you were in this position to be able to do this?
Yeah, so I actually was a producer, songwriter, and musician artist for almost 20 years before I did this. I started actually at Sony, so I started on the major label side of things. I worked for Sony Studios as an engineer in the late 1900s, early 2000s. I signed a publishing deal with BMG, which is actually a German company, obviously. And I did songwriting and publishing and producing and everything for many years. I think that I was always somebody who was interested in the business side. I think that you know, I used to go to BMG's offices in New York and talk to the administrators about royalties and stuff like that. So I was always somebody who wanted to be very connected and in control of my money and my finances on the business side of things. And I think I quickly found that there weren't really too many, you know, managers and publishers and administrators that were really helping out independents. I think there was such a huge weighted attention towards the majors and stuff that, you know, I came in as somebody who was always independent. After I left Sony, I was an independent producer and things like that. So yeah, I think my work in the independent world was what really ultimately made me do this.
So could we just dwell a little bit on your life as an artist, as a signed songwriter, producer? So what during that point did you what kind of things were you putting out? Were you co-writing? Were you a solo artist? What kind of, any songs that we may have heard of?
Yeah. So I was doing a lot of co-writing, a lot of production. I co-wrote a couple songs for Jennifer Lopez and produced those. I produced a record for Fantagram, which I'm not sure if they're as popular in Germany as they are here. I did like my final production days. I worked with a group called Switchfoot that's quite popular here. Band called Bare Hands. Like I had done a lot of, I was in Brooklyn when the Brooklyn indie rock scene was huge in the mid 2000s. So a lot of Brooklyn artists, but then, like I said, it came from Sony, so a lot of pop stuff, you know, like the JLo stuff and things like that. So, and then as an artist, I think because a lot of those projects, especially the Brooklyn ones, you know, they're more independent. So we'd make a record and they go on tour, and I often just jumped on tour with some of the bands I went to play with. So I did a couple of European tours with like Tegan and Sarah and a band called Northern State and another artist named Hester Prynne. So a lot of the projects, the artist projects I did weren't really solo projects. I was more playing in bands, and they were usually bands that I had produced or had some sort of some input there.
So it sounds like you had a good run there. You had a sort of, you were living the dream.
Yeah, I think I definitely was. I mean, you know, when I worked at Sony, actually, I got to work with, you know, I was part of the special products team. So I worked with Michael Jackson and Destiny's Child and Ricky Martin. And I remember at that time, actually, I was talking to someone the other day about it, that, you know, when I was in the room with Michael Jackson, I was 22 years old maybe. And I think I was like, this is pretty much the dream I'm living right now. So it's all downhill from there. But yeah, I had a good run as a musician and producer. I think I just, you know, got a bit older and wanted to settle down. So didn't want to be in the studio at 2 o'clock in the morning anymore, arguing about hi-hat sounds and things like that. So
what was it like to meet Michael Jackson at that age?
It was crazy. I mean, you know, I'm a child of the 90s. So, you know, that, you know, Thriller and those records were just so massive for me as a kid. And actually, the story is pretty interesting. I didn't really know I was going to do it. We had kind of an all hands on deck approach to the session. The director of the studio had everybody in there. And there was a couple pieces of gear that I knew how to use as a producer that the engineer who was assigned to the project didn't know how to use. So at the last minute, he was about 5 or 10 minutes out. The security came in and were like, all non-essential people have to leave. And I was like, all right, have a good session. And the director stopped me and said, no, you have to stay. We need somebody who knows how to use this gear. So yeah, 5 minutes later, I was in the room with Michael, and he had a sun blanket with him. And it was wild. Like I said, I mean, it's a surreal experience. You know, sometimes we'd be in sessions and, you know, I'd hear him sing a little melody or something, and I'd forget that I was like sitting next to Michael Jackson. So it was cool. I mean, he was an eccentric person for sure. You know, we had Lion King posters up, and, you know, Skittles wrapped in cellophane, and, you know, he wore pajamas. He was living at the studio at the time. So yeah, it was definitely a surreal experience.
And what track was he working on when you were in the studio with him? Or?
He was working on the Invincible record, so it was the whole Invincible album that we did. So yeah, I think Break of Dawn was the big single off of that record. So
yeah. And what about JLo? What's she like? Did you get to work with her, or?
Yeah, she was great. I mean, I met her at Sony as an engineer. That relationship kind of stuck. It was me, I had a production team that I was a part of, and me and the two other guys kind of continued to engineer for her after we left Sony. And then, once we started producing and making tracks and doing co-writes and stuff, we started submitting tracks to her, and ultimately she picked a couple that she liked that we co-wrote together. But yeah, we spent a lot of time with her. She's great. She was always, she like it was partially true that she still was kind of Jenny from the block. I think that she was just a real relaxed, cool kind of woman from the Bronx, and I think she had a lot of pride from that, and also respected herself as a real professional businesswoman. And I think I always told people, like, if you did your job well, and she was great, and I think if you didn't, then she had a little more to say about it. So but yeah, a very professional, very cool and reasonable and awesome woman to work with.
Just want to go like a little bit further. So how did you first get into music? How did you first get into Sony as an artist? Was that kind of like with the band, or did you just were you just hounding them, sending your demo tapes in, or how did that work? How did you?
Yeah, when I was young, I mean, I was always a musician. I was always in bands. I was always playing music. And then actually, it's kind of funny, when I was in high school, I had to do an internship to graduate. And it was like a technology focused high school. So I remember trying to figure something that I was interested in that still fit in the technology world. I knew that studios at the time were starting to use computers. Pro Tools was just emerging as software. And I had convinced the school to let me try and get an internship at a studio. Somebody who I actually don't even know, somebody's parent worked at Sony, and basically at like a parent teacher conference, I was one of the few kids who hadn't been placed yet, and they put me in there. So I did an internship for about 6 months or a year, my senior year of high school, and then I bounced around as a musician for like a year or two after I left high school, and then ultimately wanted to go back to the studio. So I think I still had some connections from my internship with people who worked there, and just kind of banged on the door and wanted to come back. So yeah, I came back after a couple of years of being away, and then worked my way through from being an assistant. I was a general assistant at Coffee, and then I became a studio assistant that did sessions with clients, and then I became an engineer ultimately. So yeah, I just worked my way through the system. I never went to school or anything, which in the States, and I think it's a very valuable thing. The schools here are not the best at teaching audio engineering.
So that would be your. And when was this? What kind of time frame? This is.
I started in 1998 at Sony. I graduated high school in '96. I'm 43 now, so yeah, in '98 I started my actual paid position at Sony. And I worked there until about 2002, 2003, so it was about 5 years, and then left to be independent. I mean, it was kind of a weird transition. I know that when I left the studio proper, I ended up working for most of the producers and stuff that I was working for anyway there. We just started going to different studios instead of being at Sony all the time. So yeah, this is like early 2000s mostly, I guess.
So do you think that's still possible today? If someone was watching this and I want to get into the music industry, I want to do what you're doing, Caleb, I can just go get an internship and work my way up. Is that still possible, or is there just too much competition now?
I don't know. There's part of me that feels like maybe it is still possible because the competition has gone away from that business model. I feel like these days everybody's buying their own equipment, trying to create their own home studios, do bedroom productions and stuff. I think I have one friend actually who is in the studio system now, and I feel like she is not experiencing as much competition as some of the people who are just trying to do it all on their own. I mean, it's definitely different. When I started, I had a huge advantage, like I said, because Pro Tools was just starting. I was still very young. I was very computer savvy as being a kid who grew up in the 90s. So that I remember me and one of the guys from my production team, we basically made a decision to start learning Pro Tools as soon as it came out, and we thought that would be our way in, and it ultimately paid off huge. We were, back then there was an engineer who ran the session, and then there was usually a Pro Tools operator who would just run the computer. So we really came in as Pro Tools operators first, which was just a blue ocean of, you know, competition basically. And then that job slowly changed. I mean, they slowly got rid of the engineer once they realized that everything could be done in the computer. So that direction or that path is definitely not available anymore, because Pro Tools is so ubiquitous and that was Logic and Ableton and stuff. So but yeah, I still think working the studio system to some extent could be a cool way for people to get into it. It definitely puts you in a position to be next to some of the biggest artists. I think that some of the really big artists are still going to studios and still working that system. So it does immediately put you into the upper echelon of clientele.
So did you get points on these tracks? Did you get credits on them? Yeah,
so the JLo songs I've got publishing, and I mean, I think the publishing I got in JLo was ultimately what got me signed to BMG. We do have points on the masters as well as producers. So yeah, the royalties, I mean, like I said, royalties have always been a big part of my career. So that was what really pushed me into publishing as a company.
So when did you make the switch then? When did you start your own publishing company?
It was around 2018. I moved from New York to Los Angeles in 2014. I had a different production partner at that point, and him and I had talked about, and we were doing a lot of co-writing then, and noticing that there was kind of a circuit in LA that artists would come here and just go from one writer to the next, and the producers, like we were, ultimately had a lot of the burden of the work. You know, a songwriter and artist would come in for one day, write a song, lay down some vocals, we'd spend the rest of the week kind of building out the track and mixing it and stuff. And then we would never like hear from them again. And you know, it wasn't necessarily they weren't using our songs, most of the artists just kind of went away. So we were trying to figure out a way to make sure that our time spent was, we had more control over how the artists were going. So we talked about making a production company that signed artists, but ultimately didn't want to sign artists for publishing and stuff like that. So we went for the management route. We started managing a few artists. He was also in another band that was touring a lot, so we knew a lot about the touring space. So we had a pretty vibrant roster of artists that we managed. And again, like, you know, couldn't find good partners for those independent artists to collect their publishing and stuff. So it was kind of a slow evolution. We started kind of reaching out to some societies on our own, finding direct collections from different places. And then, like I said, in 2018, when the Music Modernization Act passed, we'd already been kind of positioned in a good place to make the switch. So I'd say it was about, and sometime in 2019 is when we made it official that we were going to become a publishing administration company.
So what kind of advice would you give to people who are wanting to maybe start their own publishing company? What skills do you need, and what's the, how can you make it work financially?
Yeah, well, there's two different parts of publishing. There's being a publishing company, which is somebody who creates publishing, creates intellectual property, creates copyrights, owns, purchases copyrights, has the commodification of copywriting, is publishing. What we do is actually publishing administration. So we actually reach out to all the societies around the world, to YouTube, to other direct organizations that pay for publishing, and collect for them. So start a publishing company, which is a bit easier and a bit more common. It's just about finding ways to create intellectual property and monetizing them. Generally, I have friends that have publishing companies that offer their services as producers, or offer their studios and their network of writers and sign artists and help the artists create a library of catalog. Once you have that, then you need to find a good administrator, which is somebody like us, somebody that will go around the world and collect all of your royalties. We also have a great sync department too, so we'll help you increase the value of your publishing by getting more syncs and getting more residual royalties from those syncs. The royalty landscape's the sync landscape's a little bit different in the US than it is in Europe, but it's quite a big and profitable thing over here. So I know in the UK and stuff, they've got blanket licenses for sync through PRS. that limit some of the large fees that we get over here. So, but anyway, yeah, to start a publishing company, I think it's find a group of artists and start making records and owning the intellectual property and finding partners to help monetize it.
How has, the big legacy artists now, like Sting and Neil Young and Bob Dylan, Fleetwood Mac, all these huge artists that are selling or have sold their publishing catalogs now. So technically publishers can use their tracks they can exploit them in any way they want, really, because they've given up the rights to it. How is that affecting the publishing world?
I mean, there's a few ways it's affecting the publishing world. I mean, publishing as a commodity has exploded since some of these huge legacy artists have come on the market with their publishing. I mean, they're selling catalogs for hundreds of millions of dollars. I think the Rolling Stones was, yeah, I don't know, $300 or $400, $500 million. Same with Bob Dylan. So I don't know. I don't necessarily want to get into some of the conspiracy around it, but there are some other motivations to these companies buying the publishing with different things they control. I mean, one of the positives, actually, I'll say, one of the best things that's happened is one of the companies that's been doing a lot of this is called Hypnosis. They think they bought the Rolling Stones and Bob Dylan, and maybe Neil Young too. They've really, one of the problems with publishing advocacy is that the major publishers are all owned by major labels. So there's kind of this fight between where does the money go? Does it go to the label for the masters, go to the publishing? And the Hypnosis is really the first company that's kind of come out without a major label counterpart who's just focused on publishing. And now they are going to places like the British Parliament to try and increase rates for publishers, increase rights, and increase, and really fight and advocate for their publishing partners because they're not in conflict with the label as well. So I think that, I guess what I'm saying is that since these large catalogs have gone on the market, I know like private equity firms and stuff are now involved because there's so much money around those massive catalogs. And it's created a space for other companies to come in with big money that aren't necessarily part of the major label scene, and have started to advocate for songwriters and artists and publishers to make more from their copyright. So that's been a huge positive impact on the market.
And what about one of the conspiracy theories that you're thinking of?
Well, one of the conspiracy theories is that these companies are purchasing these catalogs because they ultimately want to get involved with suing newer artists for copyright infringement. It's been, I mean, just like last week, Dua Lipa had 2 lawsuits from 2 different artists claiming, or 3 different artists actually. There was 2 claiming the verse melody was stolen from their songs, and 1 artist claimed that the chorus is stolen from their songs, all from that song Levitate. So there's 3 lawsuits now for Levitate, and reading on the lawsuits, like, it's really hard and really risky for newer artists to take it to trial because you're arguing in front of a fairly uneducated jury system about what copyright is and what music publishing is, what songwriting is. So the chances of you playing a song that sounds similar to another song, make it very plausible that you could lose the case and end up giving up a ton of your royalties. So most of them settle outside of court now. And there's some theories going around that these companies are buying up massive catalogs so that they have a ton of works that they can use to reference in lawsuits against newer artists that are coming out with songs, and hopefully settling early and collecting, portions of artists like Dua Lipa and other successful new artists, based on the fact that, there's only 12 notes in the Western music scale. So, the chances of people making things that sound similar to other people at this point is pretty common. And I think that, some publishing companies are trying to take advantage of that.
Do you think that's what's happening with the Ed Sheeran case, the Shape of You case?
Maybe. I mean, I definitely don't think that's happened to the Dua Lipa case. I think that I listened to the artists that were suing, and they're just, I don't think they've ever grabbed the attention of the writers of that song. I'm not quite sure. I know that the Sam Smith case with Tom Petty was pretty clear. The blurred lines case was without a doubt, I think, an infringement on the copyright. There is a certain, I know from being a songwriter, there is a lot of people who like to start sessions by listening to songs that they also like and then kind of recreating them, which it does cross the line for me from being influential to copyright infringement. I don't really know the details of the Shape of You song, but you know, they're all different, and I guess like I guess my conspiracy theories are trying to cross that line of legitimate infringement and trying to kind of take it into this numbers game. So yeah, that's where it kind of starts to get a little wary on the legitimacy of the cases.
So back to Killphonics then. How did that? What is there a meaning behind the name of that? How did that come around?
I mean, I think we, you know, we use it colloquially. Like, I think some people have been like, "Why kill?" It's so negative, but it's more of the slang of like, we want to kill it for artists. We want artists who are killing it. We want, you know, people who are excited and you know, and lively about what they're doing. So you know, it's just, you know, for us, it's killing it in the audio space is where we came up with the name. So we want people who want to work with a partner who's killing it and who are killing it themselves. So but it's very colloquial. It's nothing to do with actual murder.
It sounds like it's kind of a relatively new thing. So who are you working with at the moment then? Who's on board?
We have our biggest client is Sumerian Records. They do groups like the Smashing Pumpkins and Poppy and Bad Omens, and they're kind of a hard rock label. They're one of our exciting business partners we work with, so we collect all of their royalties worldwide. Then on the personal signings, we have, you know, a couple artists here in LA. We have a woman named Hollis who does a lot of co-writing. Also has a great artist career herself. She's written with Macklemore and some other hip hop stuff. We have a woman named Devin Baldwin who's written a lot of G-Eazy songs. I'm trying to think of other highlights. We have a strictly Devin's also an artist. We have another strictly songwriter woman who's written some stuff for Chromeo and Marshmello and things like that. So we have kind of a good mix of artists and songwriters specifically, and businesses and stuff like that. So those are kind of the things that we've signed in the last year that we're excited about.
So are you kind of accepting admissions from new artists, or are you just purely just?
So yeah, we actually have three different business units. We have the B2B, the business side, but then on the personal artist side, we have the same technology available to the artists we sign to like a services platform, and those are the artists that, you know, we offer A&R support, we offer advances sometimes, we have more personalized attention, but then we have an open platform at killphonicrights.com that anybody can sign up for, and this is where we really wanted to help independent artists. So anybody can go to the platform. It's like a $19 sign up fee, and they get access to the same backend technology, to the same worldwide network we have of collections. They get all the same administration rights and royalties that we collect for anyone. It's more automated and self-service oriented. So you register your songs on the platform, which is kind of like back to the very beginning. That is our new invention, I think, is creating an opportunity for artists that maybe aren't, you know, I've always said as a manager, especially when people talk about when should you sign to a major label or to a major publisher, and generally those things make sense when you're a major artist. So, you know, for people who are still starting out, who might not be right yet for A&R services, who are still kind of they just want to make sure they're getting paid for what they're doing and they're building, we recommend that they use our open platform services to make sure they have all their royalties collected. And as you grow, then, you know, some of our artists have gone from the open platform onto our services platform, to where we actually give them A&R services. But, you know, I don't really think I wouldn't want to sign artists to a more controlling services tier if they weren't going to actually benefit from it. So yeah, so we do take submissions on the services platform, but, you know, our recommendation would be go open services or open platform services, and and register there and start collecting. And, you know, you'll pop up in our system if you're making a good amount of money.
So basically, as a new artist, then you could essentially have your own publishing company, because you'd be taking care of all the admin and actually getting a lot more of the residual income, a lot more of the what's the word? A lot more of the income. You're going to find a lot more of that out there than maybe another administrator would be able to do.
Yeah, you could really run your own publishing company through our open platform. Our software and our website and our portal actually has the ability for one publisher to sign several, or to administer several writers through one account. So we have administrative accounts where, you know, even managers maybe who manage certain artists that want to take care of the registrations for them can register on the open platform. You know, add a couple of publishing companies and a few writers to that account, and, you know, all of the collections are going to be taken care of automatically around the world. And
that's just through one account?
Yeah, just through one account online. So, I mean, really, I would love to make it free. The only problem is that we would get spammed by all kinds of people trying to claim other people's royalties and stuff. So, you know, the admin fee, or sorry, the sign up fee is literally just a security blanket for us to ward off people attempting to scam or hack us, or whatever the word is. So yeah, if you sign up for one account, you can register and collect on as many people and many songs as you want. There's no limit.
Okay, and is that $19 a year, or is that
just one-time fee? So which is, you know, we have one competitor base in the US, and I think they used to have a limit. I think they've got a limit to, it's like $50 to sign up for them, and like I think you register 100 or 200 songs with them. So and they also don't offer any of the administration type portal services that we have. So yeah, like at this point, I think we're the cheapest and most efficient place to go online to self-service yourself on royalty collection.
Wow. So what's the kind of the longer term vision then for Killphonics? Is it continue helping the new artists? Are you sort of expanding into other areas, or what's the vision?
Yeah, I mean, I think we have always been artist focused. Like I said, like I come from an artist background, producer background. So to me, I identify as an artist first and foremost, more than an industry person. So I know that we will always be focused on the artist side of things. I think advocacy is our long-term thing. I would love to get into the space that Hypnosis is in, with, you know, actually, you know, going to Parliament or the US government and trying to push for better royalties. You know, I know that the publishing system here in the US is extremely corrupt and, you know, extremely biased towards the majors. So I would love to start advocating for those things. I mean, most people don't even know about, like, you know, ASCAP and BMI. They pay higher royalties to their bigger artists. It's not equal there. You know, they pay super credits to people like Max Martin or Taylor Swift that are, you know, not one-to-one with the royalties they pay for younger artists. So I'd like to fix some things like that. I mean, in general, I think that, I don't know why we pay such a skewed percentage of royalties or residuals for the master. I mean, in these day and age, most songwriters, I mean, I know this from being a songwriter in the studio, like you're writing and recording at the same time. So I feel like it should, in the sync world here, it's 50-50 on the licensing of music for sync. I don't know why streaming isn't the same. So I'd love to push more equitable rates for songwriting and masters. And then obviously everybody in the world is trying to push for more money from Spotify anyway, because while Daniel Ek is out buying yachts and soccer teams, like the rest of the music industry is really suffering to. And there was an article from a woman in the UK said that she probably wasn't going to make as much money to even pay for the train and lunch to go to a session. You know, like her royalties were going to be most likely a couple $100, and you know that, you know, is barely enough to cover her food for the day she wrote the session. So, I mean, not a couple $100, but yeah, I mean, so the cost of going to a session these days seems to be outweighing what you're actually going to make from that residual. So. Yeah, I'd like to push for higher pay for artists and songwriters.
So what would be your advice then to young, well, not even young, but sort of new artists on the scene who really want to make a living out of their music? What's the, in terms of like, have you got any tips? Maybe it's even like using different streaming services with higher royalties or things like that. Is there any kind of little loopholes or any kind of tips that you could suggest?
I don't know if there are any loopholes. I mean, our company ethos and motto is to retain your rights. I mean, I think that's a big one. We try to make it as easy for people to come and go from our platform too. I know a lot of the agreements we have that, like I said, we're very artist focused. So, you know, we have short terms on the agreements. And often, you know, we have relations with most of our clients, and if they have an opportunity that arises, we love to see them go and flourish as an artist somewhere else as well. So, and that can only happen if you retain your rights. Once you sell your rights to a publishing company, they are theirs forever. So, you know, I often say that people don't realize, but you know, the system you're getting into in the co-publishing world is that they are giving you an advance on your payments in order to purchase a part of your royalties. So it's kind of like going into a store and buying, say, like a pack of cigarettes or whatever, giving the people your money, and then they have to give you your money back. Well, the publishing company is the customer in this situation, but you know, they're leaving the store with their money and their cigarettes at the end. You've paid them back your advance from money that was yours in the first place. So I don't think most people realize that. But in a co-pub deal, if you're recouped, you've basically given away half of your publishing for nothing. I mean, they promise you that they will increase the value of your publishing by syncs and A&R work, but that rarely ever happens in practice. So, you know, I think that, and then you know, I see artists. There was an artist last week who just got dropped by her label and her publisher, and you know, she was complaining that she basically has no services now and doesn't own her own music. So for her to go somewhere else and start to make money off of her work is virtually impossible. So I think retaining your rights, getting into, like, we do only administration, we do not do co-pub deals. So no artists of ours, we don't own any of their publishing. And I think that's the model for the future. Again, as far as loopholes go, I mean, I would love to say don't use Spotify, but it's just not realistic for artists to not participate in the largest streaming platform in the world. So I honestly, the best thing that anyone can do is educate yourself. I mean, that's, you know, a lot of interviews I do, people say, what's your biggest hurdle? And it's always the education of artists, especially in the US. Most people don't realize what their publishing deals are like, and most people don't realize, you know, what these royalties are, how much money is there, how much they're collecting, how much they're not collecting. I mean, when we did the push for the MLC, most people in the US didn't know what mechanical royalties were. They saw in their ASCAP and BMI statements that they were getting money from Spotify and left it at that, but there's almost an equal amount on the mechanical side for streaming that they're leaving on the table. So you know, empowering yourself with education is huge. You'll do, I think I was, like I said, back to originally my interest in the business as a writer, you know, kept me in control of my decisions, and I kept educating myself to know where my rights were and where my money was, and that is definitely a big part of what made me successful as a producer.
So it's your experience. Have you, in your learning, has that ever been formal or academic, or is it just you've just learned on the job and read books? And
yeah, I mean, there's a lot of asking around, I think, you know, and kind of demanding people give me some sort of answer. You know, like I had several managers throughout my career, obviously, and you know, I remember when neighboring rights was a thing that came up, I didn't understand what they were for. So yeah, I went to my manager and was like, what are neighboring rights? What is sound exchange? You know, these companies are in the UK, it's the BBL. And she couldn't really answer, she didn't really know. And so, like, you know, she got on the phone and called somebody else, and you know, we sat together until we figured this out and somebody could explain it to us. So I've never really done formal education outside of high school. So I learn best from doing. And, you know, I have a woman who works for me in the admin department here who just last week was talking about going back to school to learn some more about publishing royalties and rights. And I was like, I think you'll learn more here than you ever would at school, because, you know, we actually do it. You actually have to see, you know, situations where artists' money is being lost or being duplicated or whatever it is. And you'll learn more from actually doing it than going to learn about it. And that was the same for me as a writer. Like, that's what motivated me to learn, was that I wanted to know where my royalties were as a songwriter. So yeah.
Great. So yeah, I think we've got everything there. Is there anything else that you want to? Is there anything else that you want to say about Killphonic? So you want to sort of?
No, I mean, we're here for you know, we want to be an education source too for people. So if, you know, if people have questions, and even myself, I'm available, you know, online. You can find me on Instagram, and, you know, people DM me about questions all the time, and email our service and stuff like that. And we're always here to help. We're trying to build out, you know, a stronger FAQ and knowledge base on our website, so people can use that as a source of information to learn these things. But yeah, I just want to say that, you know, again, we're here to support, and I think support is something that the music industry is lacking recently and has lost touch with, and it's become so inundated with servicing itself that artists have really lost touch with competent companies and partners to help them, and that's what we want to bring back.
Great place to end there, Caleb. Thanks for your time, and best of luck with Killphonic. I'll certainly be checking that out myself.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Great. I think we've got it all there.
Yeah, that was fun. Thank you for having me.
No, the pleasure's all mine. It was interesting, actually. I didn't say. Yeah, I got an email from Krishna, sorry, and yeah, I still don't know. I still haven't asked her how she came about me. I don't know. She just appeared. So anyway, I'm sure she's doing a job, obviously.
Are you based in Germany or the UK? You have
a. I'm from the UK, but I'm actually based here in Oslo, Norway.
Oh, in Norway. Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was trying to make some European references where I could, but I wasn't sure if your audience was in Germany or the UK. But no, you're in Oslo.
Yeah, it's fairly close to Germany. It's a Germanic language for sure.
Yeah. So I mean, I've been on tour in Oslo and Sweden and all the Scandinavian countries. It's beautiful up there.
Yeah.
How long have you been there?
2 years. We moved literally October 2019, so just before the world sort of went mad in March, COVID. Yeah, we moved from the UK to here. My wife got a job here for 3 years. So
is your wife American, or is she British also?
She's American.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So
I've only been to Scandinavia in the middle of the summer or the middle of winter, so my experience is either like all darkness or
extreme.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. So. Yeah,
we're starting to come out in the light. The days are starting to get longer here, so it's beautiful in the summer, as you know. And yeah, the winters. It's actually not that bad. The winters aren't that bad in terms of weather, because as you probably know, like, because Oslo's so far south, it actually gets warmed by the Gulf. It's actually where the Gulf Stream turns around and goes back down. So it's actually Oslo's generally warmer than the rest of Norway. But it's the dark, really. That's cope with the cold is not too bad. But it's just the fact that it's dark so long.
Right.
And even that, it's not like sort of it's the least affected really in Norway. You go further north, and it really is. You don't see light at all for a few months.
Yeah, I think we did a festival in like northern Sweden in like the summer. I think it was 2 o'clock in the morning and the sun was coming up already. It was wild.
Yeah. It is. It's crazy. Yeah. So hopefully I'm getting to see a bit more of it. I'm a musician as well, so I'm getting to travel around a bit and see a bit of the country.
Yeah, how are things opening up again there for COVID and things like that? yet?
Yeah, it's all opened up.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
We literally in LA, we just opened up last week. No masks.
Oh, really?
So
Wow.
we've had some open, but the mask regulations and stuff finally went away last week.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That was yeah. It was fairly recently. It was about 3 weeks ago, and yeah, it was all sort of yeah. It was 3 weeks ago. Everything's masks off. It's all back to 2019 kind of everything's back to normal kind of thing.
Cool.
It's like nothing
What is it?
like nothing ever happened.
Right. Yeah, exactly. We're back to 19, except for 2 years are gone, but we're back to the beginning. So, well, if I ever make it to Norway again, I'll look you up. I don't know. I don't tour anymore, so unfortunately, I don't make it around as much as I used to.
Yeah. And whereabouts are you? You're in LA.
I'm in LA. Yeah, I'm originally from New York. I was born and raised outside of New York City, so I'm very much an East Coast American living on the West Coast right now. So, but are you from London originally, or where are you from in the UK?
From Birmingham in the West Midlands. Yeah.
Right.
Well, same Birmingham. That's it's actually a bit further out from Birmingham. That's the city that most people would have heard of in the middle of England. So yeah, my partner, she was living in London she's been there 16 years living in London. That's how we met in the UK and then came over here. But yeah, her family live in California and sort of Palo Alto. Right?
I don't know California. Beautiful up there. Really, really expensive up there now. That's like
super expensive. I mean, they were there like before the before the bubble, before it all kind of exploded. I think. But, yeah, it's beautiful.
Well, actually, I gotta jump up. I just realized it's almost 1 o'clock here. I have another call.
Yeah, of course. Well, thank you so much for your time, and yeah, I'll let you know. I'll send you the link once it's done. And
cool. Yeah. Grab my email from Krishona and hit me up when you have a chance.
Yeah.
All right. Great to meet you. Thank you, Smith.
Yeah, you too. Have a good day.
Bye.